The tale began at Umeno High School, where a boy with pink hair named Aikazawa caught the attention of another student. The other boy greeted him with a cheerful good morning, commenting on the beautiful weather and the delightful sight of the cherry blossoms. They had just entered the academy a month prior, and the excitement was still palpable. In the next scene, both boys noticed a girl walking ahead of them. She wore glasses and had a slight blush on her face, all while dressed in her school uniform. Although she appeared plain at first glance, there was an undeniable cuteness about her. As she walked ahead, Aikazawa's friend commented that Iguchi-san looked average but possessed a certain charm that made her feel cute. Aikazawa questioned her name, Iguchi, since he had never heard of her in class before. His friend reminded him that after yesterday's seat exchange, he had been sitting next to her. Aikazawa shrugged it off, stating that he was only looking at her melons, a remark that underscored the reason why he wasn't popular with girls. Iguchi glanced at them with a distant look, observing the two boys gossiping while still blushing. The scene shifted to inside the classroom, where summer's heat made the atmosphere stifling. Iguchi tried to take off her sweater, but alongside it, two things stood out: her sweater and her curvaceous figure. Aikazawa commented that her shirt was slightly transparent due to sweat, making it almost visible, which he deemed a bad idea given the circumstances. The girls in the class heard his remark and reacted sharply, calling him a pervert for saying such things. One girl said he was the worst, comforting Iguchi by telling her not to let it bother her. However, Aikazawa defended himself, claiming he was simply trying to compliment her. Iguchi then noticed Aikazawa's hand, which was bandaged. Despite frequently playing soccer, he kept getting injured, yet his nails were surprisingly intact. She also observed the way his hair was trimmed, which made him look quite put together. Whenever he bent down to pick something up, his chest became more visible, prompting her to remark that it was really perverted. For a moment, every boy in the class was puzzled by her comment as she attempted to cover her embarrassment with both hands. Aikazawa, feeling the weight of her gaze, urged her not to look at him with those pervert eyes. Yet she insisted she was just complimenting him. Aikazawa thought about the comment Iguchi had made earlier in class, recalling how she had almost been able to see his chest. Inside the bathroom, he gazed at himself in the mirror, questioning whether it was truly visible. Was it really because of his shirt? Did he need to button it up? Just then, his friend called out to him from beside the sink, asking what he was doing there. Caught off guard, Aikazawa scrambled for an excuse, claiming he was just doing some stretches in the restroom. His face flushed crimson as he tried to maintain some semblance of composure. In the next scene, Iguchi-san was struggling to clean the board, making some surprisingly cute noises in the process. It seemed as if she was having trouble, bending so close to the board that it looked as if she were doing it on purpose, trying to play the nerdy role. Aikazawa commented that, although she appeared somewhat erotic while cleaning the board, she was still acting a bit foolish in her efforts. Noticing that his buttons were done all the way up to his neck, she remarked that it was because of her. Aikazawa couldn't respond but thought it was due to the way she was looking at him with her perverted eyes. She pointed out that with his shirt fully buttoned up, his Adam's apple became more visible, which made him look more manly, a comment that made him frown for a moment. Moreover, she said that she also tried to avoid showing any gaps in her clothing when wearing a size smaller. Aikazawa wondered how she could know so much about men's clothing. In response, Iguchi mentioned that, instead, it made his waistline stand out. Then, trying to hug him, she confessed that it made her want to embrace him. Overwhelmed, Aikazawa struggled to maintain control and began acting like a flustered child, running away from her and shouting for her not to touch him. She teased that she hadn't touched him yet, leaving him confused over what she meant by that. As the class progressed, Aikazawa noticed that she seemed to stare at him throughout the entire lesson, making it difficult for him to concentrate on his studies. Apparently, she didn't like the way her shirt clung tightly around her bust, which raised questions for Aikazawa. Was that truly the only reason she dressed that way? After all, her size was quite noticeable. While Aikazawa was busy selecting clothes in the trial room, he felt confused about which ones to choose and which would be perfect for him. As he tried on a t-shirt, he admired his perfectly masculine and lean physique. He was about to enter the classroom, looking carefree and as if he had never cared about anything, yet he was troubled this morning for a specific reason: his shirt. He noticed Iguchi-san's presence in his thoughts as he entered the classroom. She was the one sitting next to him, the same girl who had made all those perverted comments and had been the source of his distracting thoughts. Even though she had an enticing figure, Aikazawa couldn't shake the feeling that she was looking at him with those perverted eyes. Just then, the teacher entered, instructing everyone to return to their seats as attendance was about to begin. Sitting beside her, Aikazawa thought he was well prepared today, hoping that even if she looked at him, he would handle it just fine. However, he quickly realized she didn't seem to respond at all, making him glance at the teacher. The teacher announced that when names were called during attendance, students should reply properly. As attendance began, Iguchi-san watched closely, and Aikizawa couldn't help but wonder if she had ulterior motives. Was she really looking at the teacher with the same perverted eyes she had directed at him? The thought made him frown, unable to comprehend why she would watch the teacher with such a gaze instead of focusing on him. As the teacher continued taking attendance, Aikizawa observed Iguchi. He became preoccupied with thoughts about her clothes, their fit, and how they enhanced her body line. He even wondered if he should have worn an undershirt today. When he caught her glaring at the teacher, he thought, "Don't look at the teacher with that crazy look in your eyes." Aikizawa then glanced at his own body, reminding himself that it was far superior to the teacher's, with defined muscles to boot. Still, he reflected on his actions, questioning why he was so engaged in this competition for attention. He felt frustrated that she seemed to control his emotions without saying a word. He thought it was good that she had accepted her indecent gaze toward the teacher, allowing him to take a breath of relief. Just then, Aikizawa greeted his friend with a cheerful good morning. His friend, noticing his attire, asked why he was wearing a shirt today, pondering if it wasn't too hot for him. Aikizawa replied that it was a little chilly this morning, though he was already sweating from the warmth. Aikizawa noticed Iguchi glancing at him, and a smile crept onto his face. This was all he had wanted. His friend remarked that she was an easy target for his strategies regarding undershirts. Aikizawa teased her, saying she seemed to be eyeing him in the same way she had looked at the teacher. Iguchi retorted that she wasn't watching the teacher with any such thoughts. Instead, she gestured that she was looking at him, contemplating how great he would look wearing the undershirt and that it would be absolutely erotic. Blushing at her unexpected compliment, Aikizawa realized he couldn't handle the effect her words had on him. He vowed to stop indulging in dirty thoughts about her and to control the imagination that ran wild in his mind. That same evening after class, Aikizawa decided to go on an extra shopping trip. As he browsed through the store, he spotted a selection of new dresses that he thought would perfectly suit him. However, his thoughts were abruptly interrupted by his mother, who reminded him that he was unable to go out to buy headphones. Despite her comment, Aikizawa was already carrying a bag filled with athletic wear. He couldn't help but let his imagination wander back to Iguchi-san, envisioning her in tight clothes that accentuated her appearance, charming and clearly visible. This fantasy played through his mind, all sparked by the train ride he had shared with her. But just as these thoughts began to take shape, he suddenly woke up to the blaring sound of his alarm. Disoriented, Aikizawa realized it had all been a dream. The next day, Iguchi-san stood out in the crowd, stretching with her complete, perfect body. Aikizawa's friend asked him if he didn't feel hot in his full jersey. He replied that he wore it to avoid any risk of injury, noting how thin the sports uniform was and that he needed to be more careful. As he spoke, he noticed her glancing at him, with clear thoughts visible on her face. Suddenly, he felt a rush of excitement as he realized she was actually looking down at him, contemplating whether to come closer. Just as he sensed her approach, she blessedly turned away. Aikizawa questioned her, asking if she had just been looking at his underwear. She paused for a moment, closing her eyes, seemingly collecting her thoughts. She remained silent, but her expression revealed her contemplation. He cupped her cheeks gently and insisted that he was sure she was responding to him in her mind, urging her to open her eyes. When she finally moved away, she confirmed that she understood and would refrain from looking at him with that thought in her mind. In an impulsive gesture, she pulled down her pants to show him her underwear, claiming that it was now equal. Aikizawa couldn't believe what she had just done in front of so many people. Shocked, he covered her with his jacket, while the girls nearby expressed their confusion, asking why they were showing each other their underwear. She quickly threw her jacket over her face, frustrated by the situation. Instead of apologizing, she blurted out that she had done it because she had seen his pants first. Just then, his friend called him over for the match, urging him to stop focusing on underwear and pay attention to the class instead. Glancing down, Iguchi-san pointed out his jersey, questioning which team he played for. She then mentioned the goalkeeper of the football club, implying that with Aikizawa in that striking position, there wouldn't be a fair match at all. Standing there, he expressed his irritation at not being able to play, but soon he realized that she was still wearing his jersey. Quietly, she had put it on, and he watched her in disbelief, wondering what she was doing. In her mind, she reflected on how she had already imagined his underwear, picturing him taking off his shirt. In a playful yet flustered manner, she imagined herself removing her pants as well, showing him her underwear anew in her mind, while Aikizawa stood by, blushing at the thought. Aikizawa called out to her, urging her to hurry up as the match was about to begin. Iguchi-san, still wearing his jersey, replied that she would return it after washing. He insisted that there was no need for that and expressed his confusion about what she intended to do with his jersey afterward. While she contemplated her response, he remarked that a normal person would have denied such a claim immediately. He questioned her intentions with someone else's jersey, attempting to take it off himself. He thought to himself that he had never actually said she could wear it in the first place, so why was she flaunting it? It was, after all, his personal jersey, and as he pulled on the chain, her form was clearly visible to him. With a frown, he wondered why she was doing all this while feeling so at ease. He insisted that she should hurry up and take the jersey off, but the girls nearby thought he was the biggest pervert they had ever encountered. Desperate to control the situation, he insisted they had misunderstood, declaring that he was the one in trouble and that she was the real pervert. Meanwhile, Iguchi-san had already taken off running down the hallway, still wearing his jersey. He chased after her, yelling why she was fleeing. He pointed out that he was part of the sports club while she was in a go-home club. Grabbing her by the jersey, he made it clear that he wouldn't let her win in a display of physical strength. He caught her by the collar, demanding to know why she was running around with it and what her plans were. Breathlessly, she told him that she was sweating so much that she wanted to hide it with his jersey. As sweat trickled down her neck, Aikizawa felt his face flush at the sight. Trying to compose himself, he turned away, saying that he was also hurting about the situation, urging her not to worry about it. In an unexpected move, while he was still trying to comprehend everything, she grabbed him by his shirt, pulling him closer. He attempted to push her away, but she was already using his t-shirt to wipe her sweat, insisting that he was lying and claiming all he could smell was her perfume. Standing upright, she declared her intention to change before class started. Left alone and feeling defeated, Aikizawa's colleague appeared, questioning what he was doing. He urged Aikizawa to get to class as soon as possible. Processing the recent turn of events, Aikizawa wondered what Iguchi-san had originally planned and now her actions with the jersey. He considered how he took great care of his body odor, using a variety of products. He first cleaned off sweat with wipes and soap, followed by a spritz of French perfume body spray, and then a deodorant stick after showering. He was the type to take good care of his skin so that he wouldn't feel sticky and sweaty. In contrast, he knew Iguchi-san had her own secrets regarding her personal care. She tended to sweat a lot but always managed to maintain a cute appearance, even with her slightly perverted antics. Everyone in the classroom began to filter out, announcing it was time for their club activities. They asked Aikizawa what they would be practicing that day. As he entered the classroom, however, his teacher informed him that he needed to write a reflection essay for being 5 minutes late before leaving. This was his punishment for not being on time, and Aikizawa thought to himself that he was late because of Iguchi-san's antics. Trying to find his seat, he couldn't shake off the disappointment that she still hadn't returned his jersey. As he settled down, he noticed something under his desk, a bag with an item inside it. He couldn't believe she had forgotten to take the sweater after everything that had happened, leaving it behind in the classroom. Determined, he went back to the hallway, puzzled about what she was trying to prove after claiming she would return it after washing. He felt a little foolish, sounding almost like an elderly person. Spotting her, he rushed up and waved the bag, letting her know she had forgotten something. As she entered the classroom, Aikizawa revealed the jersey he held in his hand, prompting her to insist he give it back. He resisted, stating firmly that it belonged to him and he had no intention of parting with it. He felt a mix of disbelief and excitement at the thought of taking a sniff of his own jersey. He assured her that once he reached home, he would wash it and told her not to think about him in any perverted manner. The scene shifted to his house, where he was preparing to put the jersey into the washing machine. Just then, his mother entered, asking why it was taking him so long to wash his jersey. Struggling to respond, he fumbled for an excuse, eventually running away from the situation, claiming that he hadn't actually worn the jersey yet, so there was no reason to clean it. Inside his room, standing alone and flustered, Aikizawa reflected on his actions, realizing he was acting just like Iguchi-san, a real pervert. He tossed the sweater onto his bed, troubled by his thoughts. Wondering why she would sniff it, he felt annoyed at the notion that he was the only one caught in such a situation. Imagining himself leaning his body over the sweater, he pictured Iguchi-san underneath him, surrendering to his control. He visualized taking a sniff from the jersey, imagining how sweet it would smell. The thought sent shivers down his spine. Suddenly, he became aware of what he had just done and felt a wave of shame wash over him. Placing the jersey aside on his bed, he tried to dismiss his inappropriate thoughts. The next day, upon returning home from school, he noticed his mother handling the jersey. She asked him what he was doing with it, having found the garment tangled up with his bedsheets while doing laundry. Aikizawa was baffled to see how clean the room was, realizing the jersey wasn't there anymore. He found himself without any excuses and felt an overwhelming sense of embarrassment as he faced the consequences of his actions. The next day, as Aikazawa entered the classroom, his friend immediately noticed that something was off with him. His friend asked him what was wrong while guiding him into the classroom. As Aikazawa spotted Iguchi-san sitting nearby, he felt a wave of awkwardness wash over him. He had no idea how to face her and instinctively covered his face with his hand. In the next moment, he grabbed his friend's hand, seeking help to use him as a shield as he made his way into the classroom, trying to hide from Iguchi-san. Once seated, he used his bag to cover his face, lacking the courage to confront her. After a while, he rested his head on the table in defeat. His friend, noticing his unusual behavior, asked if he was having a hard day or if something was wrong. Iguchi-san then greeted him with a cheerful good morning, but he replied with a simple, mumbled yes. His friend pointed out that Aikazawa had a bad attitude toward her, especially since she had been nothing but nice. Aikazawa snapped at his friend to shut up. In response, his friend apologized to Iguchi-san on Aikazawa's behalf, explaining that his friend was acting strangely that day. She replied that she was fine with it, adding that she was happy to get a closer look at the shape of his back while he was lying on the table. Aikazawa blushed but didn't know how to express his embarrassment. He thought her remarks were extreme and found himself glancing at her. His face had turned to the side, his heart racing as he felt her gaze on him more keenly than usual. Feeling the heat, he noticed his neck was starting to sweat. Before he could process his thoughts, Iguchi-san leaned in closer to his face, pointing out that his ears were turning red. He was shocked by her boldness and asked why she had leaned in so close in the classroom, worried about what the other students would think of them. She merely smiled, saying that at least they had made eye contact once that day. Aikazawa frowned at her statement, but the moment was interrupted when the teacher entered the classroom, instructing everyone to take their seats as he prepared to take attendance. Iguchi-san returned to her seat, leaving Aikazawa to ponder whether he should also start paying attention to her body language. As he thought about it, he couldn't help but notice how she wore her glasses, contemplating whether their eyes had met or if such occurrences were common between them. Clenching his back tightly, he realized that none of this seemed to bother her. His friend caught on to the sudden change in Aikazawa's demeanor and asked what it was all about, noticing that he seemed to be in a better mood. Aikazawa began to bat his friend away, questioning why he was acting like such a detective today. "Can you imagine?" he replied. "She's the one who asked me to sniff her jersey out." He was worried that the day he had been waiting for had finally arrived. While everyone else exchanged greetings as was customary, his mind was preoccupied with thoughts of the uniform exchange. He couldn't help but imagine how she would look at him in his summer uniform, her foxy eyes gazing at him as he stood tall. To prepare himself, he had chosen to wear it, though he felt that doing so made him more conscious and somewhat exposed. Suddenly, he heard a voice beside him. It was his friend Aikazawa. Aikazawa inquired about the absence of an undershirt, but he explained that it was too hot to wear one. He became aware that his neckline was clearly visible, and he thought that perhaps this made him appear more erotic. At a glance, Aikazawa seemed taken aback, covering his embarrassment with his hands and asking if his neckline was transparent. Just then, they were joined by Iguchi-san, who greeted them. He acted dumbfounded, pretending to hide his friend, but Aikazawa challenged him, asking what he was trying to hide from her. With a playful insistence, she suggested that he should leave them alone for some privacy. Suspicious of what they might be planning to do, Aikazawa greeted her with a cheerful "good morning," to which she replied, "Good morning, Manio-kun." He couldn't believe that his friend had made such a bold move right in front of him. Both he and Aikazawa exchanged glances, sensing the tension in the air about who looked more appealing at that moment. When Iguchi-san called out to Manio-kun, Aikazawa was left in a state of shock. Fueled by frustration, Aikazawa pondered why her attention seemed more focused on the one who looked more exposed. Her surprise at his sudden boldness caught him off guard. She leaned in closer, playfully tugging at his shirt, suggesting that perhaps he wanted her to gaze at him with perverted eyes. Aikazawa was astounded by her brazen statements and actions. Pulling away abruptly, he insisted he had some pride and would never allow her to do that. Pointing a finger at her, he boldly declared that if anyone was to be deemed erotic in that moment, it was she in her own shirt. His proclamation broke the tension, but it didn't last long, as Iguchi-san suddenly struck him with her bag. She seemed annoyed, questioning him about why he had hit her. She responded defensively, explaining that she had been concerned about her appearance at the entrance ceremony due to having eaten too much lately, assuring him she would return to her original figure soon. He quickly clarified that he hadn't meant it that way, but she was furious and turned away from him. As he attempted to call out to her, she ignored him completely, leaving him to accept defeat in his unusual outburst. Ikesawa reassured him that there was no need for worry. Today was his day. Just then, their teacher arrived, reminding them that they needed to hurry to the classroom. In the midst of the commotion and lingering thoughts, he found himself daydreaming about how Iguchi-san would enjoy her favorite melon bread while wearing her usual attire. He couldn't help but think about how delightful it would be to watch her take a bite, recalling fondly that his own favorite food was okonomiyaki. After that incident, he found himself sitting beside Iguchi-san in the classroom. He had unintentionally made her angry, and now she was completely ignoring him. Normally, she would have given him that irritating look with her penetrating eyes, but today she was resolutely silent. He was shocked. Typically, things would have smoothed over after some casual conversation. He attempted to break the ice by asking her if she had completed her math homework. She replied that she had, but wondered why he was inquiring. He didn't intend to imply that she should exercise before studying, but somehow she interpreted it that way. He realized he was in a dangerous situation. Every time he spoke, she seemed to twist his words into something different. As he pondered what to say, he could feel her anger radiating from her. Suddenly, the teacher called out to him, asking him to bring the class materials from the preparation room during lunch break. Given that only one person was typically expected to handle that task, he decided to ask Iguchi-san to accompany him. To his surprise, she agreed to the teacher's request. Afterward, he flashed the thumbs up. It looked like he was part of her plan after all. During their trip to the office to gather the necessary class preparation items, he saw this as an opportunity to make amends with her, but he had no idea how to go about it or how to earn her forgiveness. If she were his sister, a small gift would have sufficed, but this situation was different. He called out to Iguchi-san, suggesting that he wanted to treat her to ice cream at the nearby store. She quickly shot him down, expressing that she didn't want to eat ice cream because she felt fat. The moment felt like a failure. He scolded himself for being so foolish to ask her. Determined to find something that would make her happy, he decided to take a different approach. Calling out to her, he offered to let her look at him whenever she wanted, just for that day. She regarded him silently for a few moments, creating an awkward tension that made him feel uneasy. Finally, she bluntly asked him to show her his chest. Such a direct request made him blush. He couldn't understand why that particular part was significant to her. She then turned her back, declaring it was never mind, suggesting he couldn't do it. Feeling emboldened, he insisted it was fine, starting to take off his shirt. He convinced himself that he could simply imagine it was just for a dip in the ocean. Pulling his shirt up, he let her see his chest, but when she tried to touch it, he began to shake uncontrollably. Trying to cover himself, he quickly corrected her, stating he hadn't said she could touch it. Her mood seemed to lift, and he could see a hint of excitement and mischief in her eyes, making her look both erotic and hot, like a boiling kettle about to spill over. He felt flustered, and just as things started to heat up, the teacher appeared in the hallway, noting their delay. Unfortunately, they were interrupted at the wrong moment. Suddenly, the door opened and Ikezawa came bursting out, yelling at him to stay away from Iguchi-san and calling him an idiot while accusing her of being a pervert. Iguchi-san came out as well, claiming he was the real idiot for making her angry. She remarked that it would have been alright if he had just expressed his feelings earlier, but it all seemed too foolish now. Their conversation was cut off by their teacher, who was frustrated that he hadn't apologized to her yet. As Iguchi-san turned away, walking down the hallway, she sarcastically added that at least she had managed to witness something amusing that day. He fell to his knees, admitting to himself that he had lost and that it was entirely his fault. His teacher thought their squabble had been resolved, but after the embarrassment of the situation, Ikezawa asked him why he was keeping his arms crossed in such hot weather when he was clearly sweating. He was lost in thoughts about the moment that had just transpired between him and Iguchi-san. Afterward, Iguchi-san coughed, and he decided it was best to stop picturing her in his mind, reminding himself to forget everything that had happened between them. Ikezawa had caught a cold, and his mother, sitting beside the dining table, inquired if he had really left the air conditioner on the whole time while he was sleeping. She advised him to be more careful about his health. He tried to brush it off, claiming that his body wasn't weak and could handle it, but it was annoying that he had come down with a cold. As he sat at the table studying, he felt a sharp pain in his stomach, accompanied by a wave of pressure while sweat dripped from his body. Even in class, he experienced the same awkward sweating and intense stomachache. Iguchi-san noticed his discomfort and asked if he was feeling unwell. He couldn't express the extent of his distress, but managed to reply affirmatively. She further remarked that he looked pretty erotic due to the sweat and his transparent shirt, but he quickly told her not to use such words, especially when he was in poor health. The chatter continued in class, and she mentioned that she was planning to support him after school by taking him to the infirmary. He declined her offer, insisting that he was fine. However, she was persistent, going so far as to call the class teacher to inform her that Aikizawa was feeling unwell and needed to go to the infirmary. The teacher called him over and instructed Iguchi-san to take him there, which she agreed to with a triumphant smile. She informed him that she was a member of the school infirmary committee and it was her responsibility to help others, which clearly irritated him. As they walked through the hallway, he felt increasingly unwell and asked her not to enter the infirmary room with him. She ignored his request, teasing that he talked a lot for someone who wasn't feeling well. He realized he was in for more trouble when he spotted a sign on the door stating that the school nurse was out for a while. He tried to make a run for it, but she caught him, insisting she wanted to help. He jokingly remarked that it was against the rules for her to assist a sick person. Searching through a closet, she asserted that she would get him some painkillers. She handed him some tissue. The message conveyed was about his temperature, which still showed a slight fever at 37.4 degrees Celsius. The doctor, inquiring about his plans, mentioned that he had shopping to do and asked if there was anything he wished to have while still feeling unwell. He expressed his desire for ice cream, to which the doctor advised him to rest and avoid overexerting himself. He nodded in agreement, reflecting on a previous situation where his condition had deteriorated due to her touch. He quickly brushed those thoughts aside, reminding himself to forget whatever had transpired earlier. Some time later, his phone buzzed with a message from his friend Mino. The message informed him that school was over, and Mino would be handing him the printouts. He replied with an acknowledgement, thinking how quickly the school day had passed. Suddenly, someone arrived at the door. He assumed that it was Mino, already there to drop off the printouts. As he opened the door, he jokingly cautioned against startling a sick person but was taken aback by the unexpected sight before him. It was Iguchi-san. Frowning, he questioned why she was there. She commented that he looked slightly better and that his temperature seemed normal. Just then, a teacher passed by, and she mentioned that he needed to give Aikizawa the class printouts. Noticing the teacher, he abruptly pulled Iguchi-san inside, gripping her hand. She was about to say something, but he silenced her by placing his hand over her mouth. Outside, Mino had arrived with the papers in hand, believing Aikizawa was asleep and not wanting to disturb him. As Mino contemplated leaving the documents in the letterbox, he peered through the peephole, declaring that he would take off. Meanwhile, Iguchi-san remained quiet under his hand. She exchanged moans that conveyed a mix of emotions, prompting him to pull his hand away quickly. She reminded him that it was Mino outside, and they shouldn't hide anything from him. He countered, stating that it would lead to misunderstandings. Curious, she asked what he meant. He clarified that he was worried about how both of them might be perceived. In an impatient tone, he insisted that she be quiet and question her presence. She placed her bag on the table and explained that she had come to visit and bring him supplies, thinking his condition might have worsened because of her, for which she felt sorry. After a brief pause, he struggled to respond and began to observe her. She suggested that it felt like some sort of revenge while also caring for a patient. He urged her to hurry home, noting that no one else was around at the moment. She informed him that her mother had gone shopping and asked if she planned to stay there. Suddenly, she reached out and placed her hand on his cheek, stating that he still felt warm and had lingering fever. She told him that she needed to take responsibility for making him feel worse and playfully inquired what he would do to repay her, leaning closer. In that moment, he recalled having placed his hand on her mouth, noting her silence, and realized she was aware that he had a fever which kept him from arriving in the classroom today. Inside his room, he lay on the bed while she attempted to place a cooling pad on his forehead. She informed him that it was a cooling pad, noting that it had become lukewarm, and instructed him to stay put while she took care of him. He felt confused, thinking there was no way he would allow her to look after him. He recalled how it all began when she had asked him to repay her for earlier. Leaning closer in an almost intimate manner, she changed the cooling pad, which made him feel a bit awkward. As she adjusted it, he realized that the cooling pad was excessively cold. Though he could see that she meant well, he feared that she might touch him inappropriately. He expressed that he thought she had reflected a little on her actions, but she insisted that she had no intention of touching him in any different manner. He then remarked that if she genuinely wanted to make up for her earlier mistake, she needed to promise him that she wouldn't touch him at all that day. She glanced away, saying that since she was in Aikizawa's room, she felt she deserved full points for her efforts in providing supplies, and under the current circumstances, she should be allowed some leeway. He told her that her feelings were clearly visible on her face, to which she asked if it really was that obvious. After that, he relaxed on the bed, and she told him he could go back to sleep while she checked on him or helped if needed. He warned her not to do anything weird. He turned on his side, facing away from her, while she remained beside him. Although he attempted to sleep on his face down, he noticed her watching him. She apologized, explaining that she subconsciously limited the sound as she gathered information about his condition. He found it odd that she had come to visit him under such circumstances. She vehemently denied any wrongdoing, insisting that she was genuinely worried about him and wanted to check in after feeling she had overstepped in the infirmary. He was left pondering how she could be concerned for him. Could she really be thoughtful? He remembered that throughout the day, she had been looking at the empty seat beside her in class, reflecting on how she might have pushed him too far when he wasn't feeling well, concluding that it was her fault. She then knelt beside the bed, expressing that's why she had reached out her hand, but quickly realized she wasn't supposed to touch him that day. Laying her face on the bed, she conveyed her sincere apologies. Such an apology made him blush even harder. Both of them gazed at each other, and he noticed as he looked closely how long her eyelashes were. She, in turn, noticed that despite the redness on his skin, he looked nice, and the curls of her hair that fell across her face made her appear very cute. Lying beside each other, he frowned, wondering what she was thinking. She laughed, suggesting she already knew his thoughts. Afterward, he reassured her, saying that instead of being lost in thought, he was merely remarking that she was really cute. He found it difficult to vocalize such sentiments and told her she should return home. After her visit, he reflected on the fact that there was a girl in his bedroom and noticed how Iguchi-san was acting quite neighborly, considering this was a boy's room that she was intruding upon. Afterward, he sat at the table, deciding to reach for some magazines when he noticed a seductive scent in the air. Suddenly, his elder sister appeared beside him, observing that he was reading a book with a seductive theme. She questioned him about whether he was really going to indulge in something so seductive, which made him a bit uncomfortable. He replied that when she returned, she would find him still absorbed in his reading. She responded by pointing out that he was still in his puberty phase, and she would let him have an item that could help him during this time. She handed him a bottle of perfume, claiming it would make 1 or 2 girls likely fall in love with him. He thought it was the same perfume from the appendix, wondering who would even consider putting such a thing on their body. In class, the scent did not go unnoticed, and his classmates quickly realized that Aikizawa had put on perfume. They speculated that it was his elder sister who had sprayed some on him. Trying to brush it off, he asserted that it was not a bad scent either. Iguchi-san, however, seemed to notice something different and quietly remarked on it. He asked her what was wrong, sensing her awkwardness. She stood from her seat, stating that she had something to attend to. Covering her nose, she confessed that she was not good with perfumes and couldn't tolerate the odor. With that, she excused herself, mentioning that she needed to go to the restroom. Frustrated, he blamed his elder sister for ruining his chance to impress her. Meanwhile, in the restroom, Iguchi-san reflected on her discomfort, sitting beside him for the entire day while feeling this way was not going to be easy. On the other side, Aikizawa's friend informed him that it was impossible to wash off the perfume, but Aikizawa remained determined, trying to scrub the scent from his body with water. Seeing the mess he was making, his friend scolded him for dirtying the floor and told him to grab some cleaning cloths while he was still at it. Coming closer to him, Iguchi-san thanked him, adding that he didn't need to do this for her. He clarified that it wasn't something he was doing specifically for her, but rather because he didn't want to be treated like an unpleasant thing in her presence. She then noticed that he hadn't wiped the water off his body yet and asked where else he had applied the perfume. He replied that he had put it on his wrist and the back of his neck, near his ears. She took a towel and began to clean his wrist and the back of his ears, asking where else he had applied it so she could help him clean it all off. Visibly frowning, he insisted that he would take care of wiping it himself. She pressed on, curious about how he had applied the perfume. He explained that he applied it on his upper body before putting on his uniform. Suddenly, she pulled his t-shirt up and stated she would clean it off for him. As she did so, he could feel her body warmth close to him, and she murmured that she was feeling sick from the perfume. He apologized, taking the blame for it. In the classroom later, as they settled into their seats, Iguchi-san glanced at his back and head, admiring the view. She imagined how great it would be if the only thing surrounding him was a pleasant fragrance. Unbeknownst to her, he was distracted by his own thoughts, wishing he could smell her scent instead. In the classroom, students were assigned to give their presentations. The student representative announced that they would be hosting a butler cafe for the upcoming cultural festival and needed to prepare maid and butler outfits, prompting inquiries about who was willing to participate. Our boy raised his hand, declaring that he would wear the mascot costume to attract customers. Iguchi-san glanced at him, and he speculated that it would be unbearable if she decided to call on him to be the butler. The teacher interjected, pointing out that if he was not mistaken, the mascot costume stored was intended for women and would likely be too small for him. Suddenly, Iguchi-san raised her hand, stating that she would take charge of the outfit, wanting to create the mascot outfit from scratch. Fixing her glasses, she announced that she would need to take measurements of every corner of his body. He was incredulous that she had seized this opportunity to be in charge. Soon after, they moved to another room to take the measurements. He thought about how he ended up in this situation, but she urged him to strip quickly so she could begin. He firmly refused, insisting that he would handle the measurements by himself. However, she explained that measuring required a certain sensitivity, implying he wouldn't be able to do it properly by himself. Defiantly, he stated that he never agreed to be measured by her and demanded she call his friend instead. She retorted that her friend was currently occupied with an executive committee meeting, making it impossible for him to assist. Despite his protests, she suggested a fair compromise. He could measure her as well. He questioned how that was fair. She handed him the measuring tape, saying he could start measuring her. He hesitantly accepted, noticing her form was clearly outlined. As he began measuring her upper body, she suddenly grabbed his hand and insisted that he could not measure properly from such a distance and told him to ensure the tape was tight. He was taken aback by how she was managing to keep a composed demeanor while claiming not to feel well. Measuring her became an overwhelming experience for him, and he struggled under the pressure of the task. Midway through, she noticed something and quickly ran off to retrieve some tissues. He was still processing the situation, thinking that nothing had gone wrong, but she exclaimed that it was already out, and she needed tissues. He suddenly realized that his nose was bleeding, drops of blood already staining the floor. In a panic, she urged him to find something he could use to stop the bleeding. Without thinking, he suggested that he could use her bra. Though he acknowledged that it was a rather hopeless suggestion, he felt he had to use something. The thought of her being bra-less in front of him felt unusually normal in the circumstance. Outside the room, his friend noticed something was off and asked if everything was all right and what they were doing. Shadows from the class were clearly visible, causing some of the girls to feel scared about the situation. He reassured Eguchi-san that it wasn't embarrassing, stressing that he didn't really care what the guys in his class thought. He wiped the blood from his nose, secretly pondering whether she truly cared about him. He remembered a childhood incident about the last time he had a nosebleed back in elementary school. Now Eguchi-san was having a small panic attack, not handling the sight of blood well. He wondered how long it would take for tissues to arrive, recalling that she had rushed to the Minimart to retrieve some. A message appeared on the phone screen, displaying tips on how girls could show their interest to the people they liked. Beside that, our boy stood ahead of Eguchi-san and her friend, who were discussing how she had finally gotten his contact number yesterday. Eguchi-san excitedly mentioned inviting him for dinner, but he said nothing, lost in thoughts about how she had once shown him her panties. He felt that she always seized opportunities to get close to him, and he couldn't shake the feeling that she looked at him with inappropriate thoughts. He thought it wasn't embarrassing because he didn't really care about the opinions of the guys in class, but the way she looked at him felt more perverted than loving. As they faced each other in the hallway, Eguchi-san greeted him with a cheerful good morning. He simply stared at her, unable to speak a word. He thought that even if he had been subconsciously looking for an aerodynamic girl in front of him, he should have been able to understand her. However, he wondered why he was having such thoughts about her, so he turned away. She called out to him, asking if he was all right after his nosebleed yesterday. When he returned, she had not been around. He tried to downplay the conversation, insisting it was no big deal, but she persisted in calling him. His thoughts shifted to the teacher, who had brought back the mascot costume from the cleaners and was drying it out, asking if he would be free after school. He confirmed that he would be, and afterward, they found themselves alone in a classroom where he was in his underwear. She reassured him that he didn't have to take everything off. He claimed that her gaze wasn't as innocent as she portrayed. She replied that it made her happy to see him, but another boy interrupted, saying she could look as much as she wanted and touch him whenever she liked since she didn't think about him that much. Seizing the moment, she came closer and locked her eyes with his, but as she reached out to touch him, he quickly retaliated by putting his shirt on and running away, saying he would try on the mascot costume instead. As he began to don the costume, she tried to stop him. He insisted that she shouldn't look, yet she inquired about why he was acting strangely today. He chose not to reply and asked her what she would do if he were a bear. She paused to think before responding, asking why he would say that. He explained that, like the mascot costume, which was covered in fluffy fur, she wouldn't be able to see his body shape at all if he were standing in front of her. He teasingly asked if she would look at him now. She was taken aback by the question, expressing that the outfit was not suitable for him. Other students arrived and noticed that his mascot costume bag was not fully closed and that it didn't fit him well, as he definitely didn't seem to match the mascot costume. She attempted to stop them from laughing, but he shared that covering just his head while using his lower half to attract customers would not make him a meme. Glancing at her, he asked about the class size, and she nodded in agreement while everyone stood there. In her imagination, he was like a tiny bear in her hands, like a puppet trying to escape from her grasp. Meanwhile, he mentally pictured her as a bear girl, only covered on her chest and lower body, everything else open, crouching and walking like a four-footed animal. As the teacher prepared to leave the classroom, he reminded the students not to stay too late while preparing for the festival, to which everyone agreed. However, standing outside was Aikazawa, alone in his outfit, which was open at the back. He pondered whether she would still look at him with the same eyes as before, even if his body shape was hidden from view. Sweaty and feeling nervous, he questioned why he was thinking so much about her. When he sat beside her, he realized she wouldn't even glance in his direction, seemingly absorbed in her own thoughts. In the past, there had been interruptions whenever they tried to talk, but now it seemed different. Suddenly, she called out to him, startling him after the long silence they had shared. Yet he soon realized it was his friend calling for him, asking for paint, while Iguchi-san's friend called out to her too. Both Aikazawa and Iguchi-san looked over as someone requested her to come and try on a maid outfit for the festival preparations near the door. Her friend explained that there were specific ways to wear the outfit, and they wanted to compare dresses. She agreed to this suggestion. While Aikazawa's classmate remarked on how Iguchi-san would look in the maid outfit given her figure, Aikazawa couldn't help but think she would certainly look enticing. He imagined how much he would love to see her in it. As his classmate pointed out that she could change in the classroom, she nodded in agreement. Aikazawa handed a shopping list to his friend, but his friend seemed unfocused, soon excusing himself with an urgent need to find someone else. In the classroom, Iguchi-san was changing when someone knocked on the door. It was Aikazawa, who found himself puzzled upon seeing her dressed only in her undergarments. When she asked him what was wrong, he struggled to articulate his thoughts. He stammered that he had come down to suggest she not wear that outfit, but couldn't bring himself to explain that she would undoubtedly look alluring. Standing there, he insisted that she wouldn't look good in the outfit. However, when she emerged wearing it, she asked him if she looked good. He blushed deeply, fumbling with his words as he stepped back. She reminded him that everyone was waiting for her, and he tried to stop her from leaving. In haste, he grabbed her hand and admitted he had made a mistake, prompting her to question what he meant in that situation. With an unpleasant expression, he explained that he didn't want their classmates looking at her with inappropriate intentions. His protectiveness was evident, yet she pointed out that despite his objections, he was also looking at her in a way that made him flustered. Apologizing softly, she acknowledged that she might have reminded him of something unpleasant, and then she pulled him aside. As they both ended up on the floor, he asked her what she was doing. Sitting beside him, she confessed that she had never hated the attention and revealed that all this time, it was only him she had been trying to impress. She felt it was acceptable for him to look at her with those puppy eyes. Caught in a moment of vulnerability, he noticed she was wearing panties, and he found himself entranced, unable to respond. While he thought she looked cute in the maid uniform, it still felt inappropriate. As they discussed the matter, she mentioned their homeroom teacher wouldn't allow them to wear such costumes for the cafe, leaving him puzzled. She insisted it was okay for others to look at her panties, explaining that it wasn't entirely the same as being comfortable with such scrutiny. However, he questioned how one could not feel bothered by someone staring at their underwear. The complexity of the moment hung in the air, filled with unspoken feelings and lingering tension between them. While she was still sitting beside him, Iguchi-san thought that if it were Aikazawa, she wouldn't care if he looked at her anywhere. She felt he wouldn't be able to handle the pressure. At the same time, he was deep in thought, believing that the situation suggested she liked him. Gathering her courage, she asked him what he thought about her. Further probing, she inquired if he hated or liked it when she looked at him in that way. Attempting to reach her hand toward him, she noticed he was trying to avoid her touch, but he couldn't resist. Turning his face aside, he finally admitted that he didn't hate it, which caused her to blush with a smirk. She playfully asked him what he would do if she were a teddy bear right now, teasing that if he were naked and covered in fur, it would be too erotic for her. When she observed him surrounded by their classmates, a thought crossed her mind. With this outfit, she might gain popularity, but she still felt reluctant to wear it. More importantly, she didn't want anyone other than herself looking at him with inappropriate thoughts. The jealousy in her eyes was clear, and it was evident they were both feeling possessive. Leaning closer to one another, a romantic moment began to unfold as they gazed into each other's eyes. However, she found herself taken aback, uncertain about her next move. He was equally puzzled, and they instinctively drew closer to one another. He wondered why she seemed to be pulling away. As they sat silently beside each other, he attempted to brush off the tension with laughter, jokingly asking if she really thought he was going to kiss her and claiming it was just a prank. He laughed heartily, believing that it couldn't possibly be that funny, but she stared at him, unamused. He insisted it was merely a joke and that he was just playing around. In a fit of annoyance, she kicked him out of the room, calling him an idiot. He tried to stop her, but she closed the door in his face, leaving him on the ground, feeling defeated. In that moment, he reflected on how he thought she liked him, but he hadn't expected her to run away during such a crucial moment. He was now confused, questioning whether she truly liked him or if it was just her playful imagination leading her thoughts astray. On the other side of the door, she sat on the floor, heavy with emotion, contemplating how close he had come to her and how that had scared her. She thought he might kiss her, which caused her to make a strange noise, leaving her with the feeling that there was no way she could look him in the eye again. Tears threatened to spill as she struggled to regain her composure. Her mind then wandered back to a moment earlier in the day when the teacher had instructed everyone to move their desks and write their names on new seating charts. She recalled seeing Ikezawa standing and remembered his name clearly. Ikezawa-kun. It appeared she would be sitting beside him, and she thought he would have to take care of her. Standing next to each other, she noticed he didn't even try to hide that he was looking at her chest when he said he would like to take care of her. However, she dismissed his intent, thinking he was simply staring at what she perceived to be just some lumps of fat. She wondered why he was so interested in looking at her. As they walked through the hallway, caught up in their thoughts, she lost track of time while writing in her journal. Later, while she was beside him, talking about push-ups, she turned around to see Ikezawa exercising. The sports club was nearby, and the coach instructed the members to watch their forms and keep their legs straight. She thought the sports club members were something else. Even though this was just regular physics class, it seemed like too much exercise for them. From her vantage point, she couldn't help but notice Ikezawa's lower body, which made her feel overwhelmed. She could hardly handle the pressure. Feeling flustered, she excused herself, saying she needed to hydrate before getting ready for Nuran. Amidst her confusion, she wondered why she felt this way. As she saw him wipe the sweat from his face with his t-shirt, his toned body on display left her entirely bewildered. Standing there, she asked herself what was going on and how she had suddenly become so flustered. Overwhelmed, she ran away from the scene and returned home, where her mother remarked on her late return from class. Once in her room, she decided to take a shower, hoping it would help her cool off. However, as she turned on the water, she found it wasn't cold enough. Ikezawa was handsome, a thought that crossed her mind, but she couldn't quite wrap her head around why she was feeling so strangely hot at that moment, even in the shower. Sitting there, she pondered whether she had eaten something wrong that day, attributing her discomfort to that. After a good night's sleep, she felt normal again. The following morning in the classroom, she noticed Ikezawa standing out among their peers with his impressive physique. She glared at his lower body, acknowledging that he looked completely alluring, and it was evident he wasn't even trying to hide that he was watching her too. Grabbing his face, Ikezawa came back to his senses, reflecting on how he had almost kissed the girl sitting beside him. He wondered how he could have allowed that to happen. It felt like he had dug his own grave. Now he needed to think of a way to cover it up as a joke. When she returned to her seat, he was struck with the thought of how he could face her after what had just transpired. Ikezawa then called out to her, greeting her with a cheerful good morning, to which she responded in kind. As their greeting unfolded, he was taken aback by their interaction, thinking that perhaps she would no longer speak to him after everything that had happened. Earlier, he believed she had misconstrued the situation and that it wasn't entirely her fault. If she was going to act distant, then he would simply mirror that distance. Yawning, he remarked that he was feeling hot and sweating, insisting he needed to wipe every drop of sweat from his body using body wipes. He started by wiping his neck, then his armpit, and finally his chest. To his dismay, he noticed she wasn't even paying attention to him. In a moment of impulsivity, he thought that if she wasn't looking, maybe he should just take off his shirt. He did so, revealing his ripped body in the middle of the classroom. She quickly responded, exclaiming, "No." He asked her why she was being so stubborn. The situation felt like déjà vu, recalling a past incident that he wished he could forget. It was in that moment he realized he had truly messed up. He thought it would have been easy if she had simply said she was sorry. Sitting on the ground, he voiced his remorse, saying he was sorry for the incident that had occurred yesterday. She looked puzzled by his actions and merely replied, yes. Apparently, she still wanted to make light of the situation, adding it was fine for him to show his skin as much as he wanted. It was no problem for her. However, he insisted that was not the case. She then admitted that she didn't feel anything when things like that were done to her, although she trembled slightly as she spoke. Asking for a wet wipe, She volunteered to wipe all his sweat for him, claiming it was her way of saying sorry. He resisted the offer but found he couldn't push her away. Ultimately, she took charge, forcefully wiping his sweat. Aikizawa attempted to stop her, but she was persistent. Meanwhile, one of his friends was watching from a distance, mistakenly thinking they were fighting even as they seemed to be reconciling with each other. She called out for him, her voice laced with a hint of fear. He asked what was wrong and why she looked so gloomy early in the morning. She revealed that making the mascot outfit had proven too difficult, leading her to decide to buy one from the store. She thought that was the reason for her demeanor. She had originally intended to create a special outfit designed to perfectly match his body, but her inability to bring that vision to life left her feeling disappointed. Despite this, he felt grateful that she ultimately chose not to pursue the project. She mentioned that she planned to go shopping after class and invited him to accompany her to try it on. He gladly agreed. In his mind, he began to fantasize about finally going shopping together after class. Doesn't that sound like a date? Yet he worried that he might overthink it and mess things up again. He reminded himself not to become overly conscious and to let things flow naturally. His friend interrupted, asking if they were going to decide on the menu for the upcoming cultural festival. He declined, citing a prior commitment. Soon after, she inquired if he was ready for class, to which he instantly replied that he was. His friend watched in puzzlement, surprised that he and she were going out together. His friend called out to him, mockingly wondering if it was really fine, teasing that he had finally lost his chance. As they walked away, he dismissed his friend's remarks, assuring himself it was just a normal outing. His friend's weariness, perhaps from their previous commitments, didn't concern him. The scene shifted to the shopping mall, where they stood side by side. She was engrossed in her calculations, stating that it was reasonable to buy pajamas, yet she wanted to add some finishing touches to accentuate his physique. He attempted to intervene, concerned about her plans. She proposed they head to the store, but he tried to call her back. However, they soon found themselves in the main shopping mall, where the aroma of freshly baked melon bread caught their attention. Both were momentarily captivated. She let slip her desire to eat one, but when he asked if she was hungry, she quickly denied it, insisting she was merely admiring them. Yet he saw through her pretense. Determined, he approached the vendor and requested 2 melon breads. He handed her one, and her eyes widened in amazement. He explained that he was also feeling hungry around this time and took a bite of his own. She thanked him, her expression reflecting a sense of joy akin to receiving something precious. He noticed the way she looked at the bread, reminiscent of how she often gazed at his body. While he chewed, he thought she appeared relatively normal today. But she hadn't teased him at all. Perhaps his intention to avoid overthinking wasn't working, especially as he watched her enjoy the melon bread like a child savoring their favorite treat. Soon he began to cough, prompting her to ask if he was okay. He explained that crumbs had fallen into his shirt, and she noticed. Without hesitation, she reached out and cleaned the crumbs from his shirt, catching him off guard. He exclaimed, questioning what she was doing. She replied that it would be a waste to leave the crumbs there, in more ways than one. He was taken aback, curious about her implication, but she brushed it off, licking her fingers with a teasing glint in her eye, commenting that it was a little salty. His expression faltered, and he could hardly withstand her playful antics, protesting that she shouldn't be tasting them. During the next CVC session, the protagonist, a girl, found herself inside a Photoshop studio where she and her companion were playfully proposing to each other amidst their efforts to work. He was dressed in a cosplay outfit, taking pictures in a photo booth. Both looked adorable, and suddenly she realized what they were doing there. Alarmed, she shouted that they should leave, as they were losing focus on their goal of shopping. She quickly retorted that it wasn't true. She was simply doing her job by checking if the bear costume really fit him. Afterwards, they moved to another place to buy something. As they walked, she noticed the cosplay photo booth again and suggested that they might not get another chance to use it. He expressed his reluctance, telling her that just because they were at the booth didn't mean she could force him to participate. Ironically, it was he who ended up in the cosplay costume. She explained that she hadn't planned on dressing him in anything different for the cultural festival. She then showed him various outfits, telling him that he could choose any cosplay he wanted to wear. His gaze landed on something unusual that caught her attention. It was a black dress with handcuffs, which made him imagine how cute they would look wearing matching outfits. As he contemplated it, he felt a sneeze coming on, thinking that the dress was perfect for the occasion. She instructed him to start counting so she could get ready. Eventually, they both entered the photo booth. He thought the situation was incredibly embarrassing, but she didn't seem to share his feelings of discomfort. When she looked at him, he realized she expected him to pose as well, but he mentioned that he wasn't excited about the photo session. She encouraged him to strike a smart pose, prompting him to think about what that might look like. Raising her hand, she decided on a safe choice, stating that normal poses would work. When she counted to 3, she instructed him to look at the camera. He frowned, sensing a shift in her demeanor. It seemed she was starting to feel something for him. As the photo captured her making a cute pose, she turned away, admonishing him not to look at her, claiming she was embarrassed in that moment. However, he scrutinized her carefully, noting that she had been stealing glances at him more than before. She attempted to cover her face with her hand. For the next pose, she styled herself as a harem victim, playfully telling him to wait while sporting a tangled expression. She entwined her fingers and jokingly told him that whenever he got close like that, it made her want to attack him and take advantage of the situation. As they posed, the photos were captured. Once they exited the photo booth, she remarked that the pictures resembled a coma manga, while he responded that the experience had been so embarrassing for him that he wouldn't come again with her. As the boy walked out of the trial room, wearing the bear outfit, his facial expressions appeared as usual. However, she found him charming and flustered. Suddenly, she took out her phone and began snapping pictures of him. She insisted that he should try on the rabbit and panda costumes as well, but he quickly refused, questioning the need for so many costumes and emphasizing that they needed to head back quickly. He mentioned that they had to take a detour. She agreed, acknowledging that they were getting late and should indeed head back. While making their way home, he informed her that the culture festival was the following week and inquired about her plans for that day. She replied that she would be making drinks. In a burst of enthusiasm, she recalled their shopping trip, lamenting the absence of snacks and asking about the couple's photos they had taken. He felt flustered and insisted that it was nothing beyond just hanging out for that purpose. When she playfully asked if he had fun, he replied, "Of course not," but his flushed face clearly betrayed his feelings about spending time with her. He remarked that the situation was terrible because she had to align her desires with his. Noticing her sudden change in expression, he saw her gloomy face as she apologized to him. He quickly reassured her that it was fine, and they fell into a quiet silence while walking along the road. He began to wonder if this meant he was the bad guy, feeling sweaty and anxious as he reflected on the interaction. Although she had waved goodbye, indicating she was going in the other direction and would catch up later, her awkward reaction made him feel uncomfortable. After she left for her home, he contemplated why she seemed so lonely. He believed he hadn't intentionally hurt her with his comments, but he also recognized that he might have complained too much. Despite admitting to himself that he had a lot of fun with her, he couldn't bring himself to express those feelings openly. Frustrated, he squeezed his bag tightly, scratching his head and lamenting how he had messed up at the end of their date. The following day in class, students greeted one another as usual. Iguchi acknowledged their greetings, while Aikazawa's friends also greeted her. Meanwhile, the boy, still preoccupied with his phone, was oblivious to the unfolding situation. As she approached to greet him back, she noticed something on his phone cover. It was the same picture of them taken the previous day, now displayed as his new phone cover. Blushing profusely, he attempted to hide his face, but it was clear to her that his emotions were evident. She quickly turned away, feeling a mix of embarrassment and intrigue, but also recognized that he seemed to be doing it on purpose. As class concluded, both of them headed to the shopping center. She wore a cute t-shirt that accentuated her bangs, while her friends gathered around her with a request. They wanted her to wear a maid outfit for the inter-class competition. The boy, puzzled by the suggestion, learned that the top prize for the competition was grilled meat, and her friends explained that they needed her help to secure the prize. From behind them, she noticed Aikazawa overhearing the conversation, discomfort clearly evident on his face. She mused inwardly about how he would look in a maid outfit. The atmosphere was filled with laughter from their classmates, who questioned why he would be the one wearing it. She called out to him, expressing her gratitude for the opportunity to wear the animal outfit instead. Aikazawa, blushing and turning away, dismissed it as nothing, claiming he was just concerned because it seemed fun. However, their peers continued to tease her about how great she looked in the bear costume. Another girl apologized for pushing her to wear the maid outfit, and she assured her that it was fine. Their friends then assigned Aikazawa the task of bringing customers to their club, prompting him to wonder why they were suddenly so cold. One of his friends commented that both he and Aikazawa looked good in their outfits, which received a thankful response from them. Afterward, he suggested they take a walk around the school, and she readily agreed. While strolling, he asked her what she wanted to eat later on, but she turned aside, deep in thought. Suddenly, one of his friends called out to him, suggesting they exchange outfits, noting that the maid outfit suited them both. Another boy remarked on the length of Aikazawa's skirt, saying he couldn't bear it. When a senior referred to it as a punishment game, Aikazawa declined, insisting it wasn't the case. In jest, they encouraged him to show his panties, which he firmly refused. However, one of them playfully grabbed his skirt, trying to pull it off while inquiring if he was wearing female clothing underneath. Despite his efforts to stop them, he found himself overwhelmed. Suddenly, Iguchi-san interjected, startling everyone. She insisted that they needed to go and attract customers while holding his hand through the hallway. They made their way to the corner of the stairway, both breathing heavily. Concerned, he asked her what was wrong all of a sudden, explaining that he was merely role-playing with his seniors. She, however, looked at him intently, asserting that it was evident he disliked the idea. Blushing, he questioned how she knew, to which she replied that it was clear from his expression. Suddenly, she reached out her hand underneath his thigh, pulling him closer and urging him to watch closely. She commented on how his reaction had changed compared to before, and as she reached her hand deeper, he tried to stop her, feeling a mix of surprise and confusion.